What are you talking about?
It's the full.
The Full Melt Show is intended for a mature audience. It contains adult themes, adult content, and sometimes adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
It's the Full Melt Show.
Are you high? What are you talking about?
It's the full melt.
Give me a break. The Full Melt Show. A marijuana discussion about news, culture, politics, and lifestyle. FullMelt.com. Toll free. 844-420-TALK. 844-420-TALK.
Welcome to another edition of the Full Melt Show. Do we have the microphone back? It seems like the microphone likes to crack out on us sometimes. Got some voice back again. Good Lord. This happened yesterday, too, I think. So today, the topic of discussion, the order of the day, at least in the first half of the program, is the proposed Detroit dispensary ordinances. If I'm not mistaken, and I may well be, because I'm a little less prepared for this than I'd like to be, I can admittedly say, I have not had a chance to review said ordinances. And that puts me a little bit behind the ball there, doesn't it? I mean, usually when I talk about something, I like to talk about it from a sense of knowledge, a sense of understanding. So it's difficult for me to bring a topic to the show that I don't have a complete understanding of, a.k.a. I haven't read the ordinances because they haven't been made available to me thus far. It's not that I probably couldn't have gotten them. It's just that I never did get them. But being that there's an upcoming meeting about this at City Council, which is likely to cement this into place once and for all, because they did already pass the proposed ordinances, right? If it's my understanding at this point in time that the issue at play is the zoning issues, right? They didn't want a complete passage of or implement passage of the proposed ordinances unless they did them as a package. And I might be corrected on this by our upcoming guest, which I'd like to move, kind of more central and forward to the program. I asked Mr. Rudoy if he would come on the program, David Rudoy, who's an attorney who has an interest in this place. I know David is intimately familiar with the downtown Detroit situation. I also know that David Rudoy is a board member with MI Legalize. If you're not familiar with MI Legalize, it is the nonprofit put together, designed and implementing, if they can, this people's initiative known as MI Legalize. I think there's a more formal name for it. Again, he can correct me on this because he's formally attached to the organization as a board member. But offering some full disclosure, our guest attorney is a proponent and advocate of marijuana. And in the event that I can get him on before our break comes up, I would like to do that. So I'd just like to, have you bear with me briefly. I see if I can't get him texted up here to see if we can get him on a little bit earlier. So, David, can we get you on now instead of 7:15? So, I don't know if, David, you might be listening to the program. If you are, go ahead and give us a call at 844-420-TALK. That's 844-420-8255. I was just going to call David during the upcoming break because usually I have some other material located on this side of the program. Usually I have some other... What's that going on? Something else bedunking me. I don't like it when the computer makes... They did it again. Making some odd noises. It's like something came unattached, like detached. There it goes again. What's going on there? Oh, it's just like making a dunking sound. It keeps doing it. I'm going to just get rid of this other page online just in case it's coming from that location. You got to be careful when you're doing that because I I could knock us off the air. I don't want to do that. So, all right. So, let me see here. I guess the best way, I'm just going to tell him to call. In that event, normally I'd have a call screener here. I wouldn't have a call screener here. I don't have a call screener. Normally I'd have a call screener here would take care of this while I'm on the air, so I don't have to do it while I'm on the air. But he's not here today. There is no call screener. In that event, please call us at, let's see, the other phone is like fidgety, and I don't want to do that on there either. 844-420-8255. And incidentally, if you have an interest, you can call our Cadillac No Smell lines too, live right here at the PetPain.com studios, to chime in your interest about this subject. I know there are a lot of dispensaries in the Detroit area. I mean, officially numbered, they're like around 130-something, 150-something. I don't know. I remember Councilman James Tate, who authored much of these ordinances, or at least was a principal proponent of them. He brought this to the board's attention. I think he was pushing this issue. I think that Mr. Tate has a good point in hand. I mean, he's trying to do the right thing in both ways, and I thank him for that. Because that's what his job is, right? He's there to help and address and do the bidding of the constituents of his district. And many of those constituents were complaining to the councilman about the proliferation of these dispensaries. And Mr. Tate had quoted these dispensaries as numbering around 184, I think, if memory serves. I don't want to put words into Councilman Tate's mouth, so I'll leave that alone. But it seems that, here we go. I think, David Radoy, is this you?
Space had run out.
Oh, hang on. David, is that you? Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me, David?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Can you hear me okay, or is it popping in and out on you?
I can hear you well.
Okay, good. Incidentally, I've already kind of introduced you on the program as having an interest in this space, being intimately familiar with the downtown Detroit situation. You can correct me on this if I'm wrong. And then also a board member of MI Legalize.
That is correct.
Terrific. So now I had also mentioned, in the interest that you probably hadn't had a chance to listen to the program up until now, which is just, moments old anyways. The question is, am I correct in my assertion, because I'm just going based off of memory, I'm not looking at anything in front of me, that the original ordinances themselves concerning the language and rules regarding these dispensaries has already been passed, and but it's not been implemented. It's standing by for implementation once they settle this other issue, which is with regards to zoning and locale.
That is correct.
That is correct. Is that what you said?
The licensing portion of the ordinance.
I'm sorry. One more time for me, David. I stepped on you.
I said they passed the licensing portion of the ordinance, which I think got kind of hammered through over Cushenberry, Representative Cushenberry wanting to add some amendments to it. But they passed that portion of the ordinance last week on Tuesday. And now the real major issue is the zoning aspect of the ordinance, which will really shut most of the dispensaries in Detroit down, the way it's currently put together. And that is still up for debate. They took public comment last Thursday, and we'll see what happens. I have the distinct feeling it's getting pushed through.
So I titled originally this program, and then I changed the title because I wanted to add some content to the show, being that the People v. Agro case was released by the Supreme Court in way of opinion today. Did you see that?
I have not had a chance to read that case yet.
Okay, so I wanted to add that on. So as a program note, after our conversation about these Detroit dispensary ordinances, going to have on Alan Peisner, who I believe is going to give us the rundown, his take on what this Court of Appeals ruling means, because I believe it was unfavorable.
Well, if it's an opinion coming out of the Michigan Court of Appeals, we can almost plan on it being unfavorable. Although, like I said, I have not had a chance to read that case yet.
If I'm not mistaken, the gist of it is, and I just caught the headline, that the Court of Appeals said that Ms. Agro is not entitled to a Section 8 defense at trial. So that would have been probably the question before them. I'm assuming. But again,
yeah, it looks like. Well, I guess I'm a little bit interested because the People v. Agro case originally came out back in 2013.
Correct.
So I'm a little bit unfamiliar with what the newest ruling is, as I just have not had a chance.
Yeah, no, I wasn't expecting to address it with you. I just wanted to mention as a program note for those. This is why, because we originally were going to talk at 7:15. I moved you up a little bit because I wanted to squeeze in this other information about Ms. Agro later on with Mr. Peisner.
Yeah, great. I'll stay on and listen. Definitely very interested in that topic. So
we've established that the licensing portion of the ordinance has been passed, and now it's the zoning issues that remain, correct?
That's right. And, to be honest with you, I think there's some negative stuff in that licensing portion of the ordinance, mandating the hours of 10 to 8, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., considering that Detroit's really a third shift city, to kind of mandate that people can't get their medicine except for during those hours. They basically outlawed the drive-through, which a lot of people don't understand why, and they kind of leaned on the city council kind of leaned on the illegal transport law that is pretty much been found by most judges to be unconstitutional here in the state of Michigan, but we don't have a final ruling on that. So
it's not settled law, is what you're saying. That's not settled.
Well, yeah, I mean, the big issue with the transport ordinance is that not a part of the Medical Marijuana Act.
All right. So, David, we are hitting the break yet. I'm glad we got this kind of set up and established because I want to poke at a little bit both some of the licensing issues and then also some of the zoning issues. It seems there's a lot of concern about zoning. We'll kind of pick that apart next, coming up on the program here on The Full Melt Show. Stand by.
You're getting The Full Melt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Your old friend the Crypt Keeper here with a Pottober News Bulletin. Ghoulies and creepies gather thee round for a map to patience partying down. As the days grow shorter to the end of month 10, it's time to gather, friend among friend. Michigan card holders, admission is free to the X on the map dubbed Hall Deboween. This lure of free fun is perfectly true, and this is the invite. Yes, that means you. The vendors and speakers this day are just ghosts, exchanged for free entry, free food, and a toast. Asunder our differences this Hallows Eve, so we may bring fire to glorious weed. You may light up and your neighbor may match it. The smoke in the air is to bury the hatchet. The contests you enter are all also free. Considerable prizes for the winners there'll be. Can of meds are welcome. It's alcohol free. The Jam Shack, Mount Morris, from 7 till 3.
Deboween sponsors include Depot Town of Ypsilanti, Sweetly, Flint, Harborside, Ann Arbor, Third Coast, Ypsilanti, Dank Team, Flint, Two Guys in a Grow Shop, Burton, Florida Bob's Place, Puff and Stuff of Lansing, Happy Buddha, Lansing, The Spot, Kalamazoo, Compassion Club US of Grand Rapids, Iron Labs, Walled Lake, Herbal Solutions, Ypsilanti, Biocultivation, The Herbal Center of Mount Morris, IDK Farms, Kurtz Leach and Associates of Birmingham, Act Labs, Lansing, Bill Clark Fashion Investments, Burton, Hybrid Life Magazine, Once Bitten, Twice Paid, Plush Lighting in Niles, Cannabis Council, Detroit, Nichols Law Firm, East Lansing, The Green Rock Cafe, Flint, Urban Garden Supply, Flint, also the Marijuana Ranch, Happy Harvesters, The Full Melt Show, Lindy's Bed, Matty Eddie, Flex Cocaine, Jaxica Farm, and BDT Hazel Park.
Got something to hide? Canalock offers discreet and effective storage solutions that destroy odor, so nobody knows. Canalock is a patented charcoal-activated bag that discreetly stores your marijuana. Canalock is made from the same material as military chemical warfare suits. Get yours at Canalock.com. Visit Canalock.com to learn more about no-smell technology.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571. Introducing Sacred Elements, a place for natural and alternative healing for the mind, body, and soul. Sacred Elements. It's one place, all solutions.
Registered, licensed, certified, ordained.
Sacred Elements.
Massage, hypnosis, Reiki,
Sacred Elements.
raindrop, aroma and color therapy, body detox, ministry, life coaching, weight and nutrition counseling.
Sacred Elements. Next to the Sweet Leaf, 400 South Door Highway, Flint.
11 to 7 daily, closed Sunday.
Call 810-259-2570.
Don't miss the first ever cannabis competition this year as the prize contest moved from Amsterdam to Jamaica. That's right, it's all Jamaican fun now with the Big Cup competition in Negril this November. Get your best travel accommodations now at JamaicaPot.com. Pack your beach bong and swimsuit and party down at the warm sandy beaches of Negril, Jamaica for the first ever big cannabis event this year. Do it in style or come have fun on a budget. Best travel prices now at JamaicaPot.com. That's JamaicaPot.com.
What's up with these things, Victor?
We decided to give ourselves stickers for each feature we release. We read about 10,000 suggestions a week to create features that, as traders, we'd want to use.
10,000 suggestions? Who reads all of those?
He does.
For all the confidence you need, TD Ameritrade, you got this.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
There must be something in the water, and there must be something about your daughter. She said, I love you nothing but a...
So just as a reminder, you can hear us here Monday through Friday from 7 until 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on thefullmelt.com. Talking with attorney David Rudoy about the proposed Detroit dispensary ordinances. Welcome back to the program, David. Are you there with us, David? Can you hear us, David?
Hello?
Hey, there you are. Okay. We switched over to these voice over IP lines. I'm less than thrilled with them at this point. So I apologize if it's kind of hard to hear. I hope you can hear us okay. Can you tell us? You've kind of already kind of was talking about it, but I was a little bit distracted by some audio issues here. We were talking about the zoning side of this, and you mentioned that there were some restrictions in the zoning that may make it virtually, I guess, impossible to locate anywhere near the number of dispensaries that currently exist inside the city's perimeters. Is that a correct assessment?
Yeah. As the zoning ordinance reads right now, I would put it at about probably maxing out at 30 to 40 dispensaries in the city. And that's with, the idea of, if there's an area where maybe there's available plot where they could potentially be 2,000 feet apart from each other, and nobody gets one in the middle of that plot, which would basically disqualify people on both sides. So that's really like kind of maxing it out. I see maybe 40 dispensaries in the city, and basically they're going to relegate these dispensaries to mostly some of the worst areas of the city. I mean, there are some plots that would be available that would be zoned properly that would not necessarily be in just the worst parts of the city, but mostly what we're going to be left with is industrial, high-crime areas of the city, and dispensaries have to be 2,000 feet from each other, so you're not going to be able to go, to get check out a couple different places for medicine, you're going to basically be stuck with what you got, as these things are going to be pretty far separated from each other. There's a bunch of ridiculous rules that treat dispensaries different than any other type of business.
This business you're talking about the sign language. You got to take the sign down off the building after you've vacated it.
Well, I think that language is a little bit troubling, although I'm much more worried about the fact that a dispensary has to be 2,000 feet.
No, I get it. I was simply making a point as to these other rules that would not necessarily apply to other businesses. That was my point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's one example. The dispensary having to be 2,000 feet from another dispensary, as well as from a liquor store or any other controlled use. There's no other business in the city that has to operate that way. They have to be 1,000 feet from any church, any public park, any school. Now, I understand the school part of that.
Well, sure, it's complying with federal law on the school thing.
Correct, and I think that that part of the ordinance is about the only part in the entire zoning ordinance that makes any sense.
Well,
would it make the whole idea of 1,000?
Would it make sense? Would it make sense from this standpoint? We don't want 185 or 100, 200 or 250 dispensaries in Detroit. We only want to minimize it to about 40, and this is our way of saying that.
I think that's exactly what's going on here. Through many talks with different people in the city, I get distinct that the community groups don't like the dispensaries. And, I think this is a big problem with education more than anything else, because they don't understand why dispensaries are actually good for this city and why having multiple dispensaries in an area might be a positive thing for that area that brings up property values, increases security in the area, and generally is good for the welfare of the citizens of Detroit. And but I think those community groups have had a lot of complaints. And when councilmen go to their different community groups that support them, the first question that they're getting is, what are you going to do about all these dispensaries? There's too many of them. What are you going to do? And I think that this zoning aspect of this ordinance was an effort to thin out the herd, as many people have put it.
It seems to me that that's exactly the message they're sending. We want to minimize this. We don't like the number that are here now. We're going to take it down to a dealable number, a number that we think is appropriate. And all the rest are just going to have to close, and you're just going to have to deal with it. This is win-win because the cops get to pick on the rest of the 110 that still want to be open after they pass this ordinance, and licensing is made.
I think that basically the city of Detroit's been worried about if they went and if they busted these places like Oakland County, they have issues with entrapment by estoppel, which is this idea that if the city says you're allowed to do it, and then you're allowed to rely on that. So they figured the best way to shut these places down is to do it using zoning, using an ordinance, and say that they're violating a specific ordinance. And, they wanted to, rather than educate the people of the city of Detroit on why this is a good thing for Detroit, why we're serving sick people and everything else, they said, okay, we're still okay with some dispensaries, but we want to shut most of them down. And especially in the areas that are the most seen throughout the city. And I guess we have to shield everybody's eyes from these places in a way, 1,000 feet. People that are going to church should not have to pass a dispensary for some reason. And I think, the real problem is miseducation. If we look at a city like Denver and how things are developing there, in Denver right now you can't buy a house. If you want to buy a house in Denver, you got to bid above the asking price because that's where property values are at. That's where the demand for living in Denver is. And Denver is the city in the U.S. with the most dispensaries. Dispensaries are not a bad thing.
Denver's got more dispensaries than any other city in the country, I think.
That's what I'm saying. And Denver's thriving more than any other city in the country right now, too.
Absolutely.
Look at property values.
The economic impact, property values aside, although that's one of the huge benefits, I think, of all this economic impact, is gigantic. It's ginormous. Look, Denver was severely depressed before all this activity started to bring them up.
I think Denver was in a depression just like everybody else back in 2008. Property value, their housing market, just like everywhere else, was on the verge of collapse. And as they've developed this entire dispensary system, and yeah, they did come up with regulations for dispensaries, but those regulations did not shut all of these places down. If you go there, that's not very obvious to see that there's dispensaries all over the place. And I think that it brings kind of people and consumers to areas of the city that they might not always have gone to, and have kind of brought up a lot of areas of the city that were previously considered
written off
no-go areas as far as crime.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that you might find any partnering? Because there must be some community input left before they pass these zoning ordinances. There's some discussion to occur on this, I believe, on October 29th. Are you aware of this? Am I correct about that?
Yes, October 29th is the date. That's correct. I think people need to show up and make it very clear. And, the residents of the city of Detroit need to show up and make it clear that we want these. These are a good thing for our city. These bring jobs and money to our city. I mean, one of the things the city council is complaining about is that a lot of these people that are shopping at these dispensaries aren't from the city of Detroit. And to me, it's like, since when is bringing the money from the suburbs to the city of Detroit a bad thing?
Right. You would not say this about, you would not,
something negative.
They would not say this about the Red Wings Stadium that's going up right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, most of those people are going to be from the suburbs too. Should we stop production of the new stadium? I mean, it's a really crazy idea that they don't want to bring in business from the suburbs and bring it to the city of Detroit, a city that's as economically challenged as any city in the country right now.
Yeah, I think any business that's legal in the city of Detroit should be not only permissible, but also enthusiastically encouraged.
That's how it would seem to me. I would think that if I was on the city council in Detroit, I would want to promote any business that wants to come to Detroit right now.
Well,
because that's the big problem. You get businesses there, you get people coming in there, and the fact that Oakland County doesn't want any of these dispensaries, I would say, is a blessing for the city of Detroit, because it will only allow for these Detroit businesses to thrive even more.
Correct. I think you're right about that.
I think it's insane. I think it's really insane, the choices that they're making, and I think they're really just bending to their view of what the public wants without really getting any actual polling of what the public wants. I mean, you're talking to these community groups, but I don't believe these groups are representative of the people of the city of Detroit on a large scale.
Well, listen, do you think you might?
I think this is really pandering to the interest of the people that are donating to them, and not necessarily to the interest of the people of the city of Detroit.
David, we just got a couple minutes left in this segment, and then I got to move along. But I wanted to ask you this: do you think you might find any partnering, any friendship in the surrounding communities who might feel some exerted additional pressure from dispensaries now leaving the city's border in Detroit because they can't get a license there, or they're getting police pressure to exit? Do you think you might find some assistance in voice from those people at that meeting? Say Mayor Fouts, for example.
I really hope that ends up happening, that there's some kind of partnership between these different dispensaries and the communities that they actually service and represent. I think there was a bit of a showing the last time. I hope for a much stronger showing on October 29th, where it can be made clear to the city council that shutting down Detroit businesses is a bad idea. Shutting down places that fill vacant buildings. What they want to do is create more vacancies instead of allow these buildings to stay filled. These bring jobs to the people of the city of Detroit. The people that are working in these dispensaries are Detroit residents. In every way, this is an economic stimulus to the city of Detroit and is good for all the citizens of the city of Detroit. And there hasn't really been any evidence that it's negative. there's one drive-by shooting near one dispensary, I'd like them to pull up the stats on how many drive-by shootings there are outside of the pharmacies that are located in the city of Detroit. How many robberies take place outside Rite Aid and CVS in the city of Detroit. I can tell you the only time I've ever been robbed was outside of a Rite Aid in the city of Detroit. There's no security there.
How about the gas stations?
There's security at every dispensary.
You better shut down all the gas stations because they're all getting robbed in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, it's this crazy idea that dispensaries attract crime that is just completely falsified. There are these myths about dispensaries that are out there, I think. And I think, the dispensaries have their own failings for not doing enough of a public education campaign, not doing enough to connect to their local communities. But the problem is a myth. I mean, there is no real problem with these dispensaries. There is no real crime that is being created because of these dispensaries. If anything, they're shutting crime down because those drug dealers that are sitting on the corners selling weed are not going to be able to do that as successfully with all these dispensaries everywhere. So if anything, this is going to lower the crime because it takes people away from the black market and into the retail shops. And that's what I think we really need to get out there to the city council. Further, I think it's an interesting note that this entire ordinance, the licensing part that was already passed, is a caregiving center ordinance. 4209 is going through the state right now. That's going to allow for licensed provisioning centers. And the city attorney, the corporate counsel for the city of Detroit, stated that this is totally separate from that bill. So it's kind of an interesting thing to note that they went ahead and with the bill with the direct purpose of just shutting these dispensaries down, and they didn't even really have the foresight to account for what's going on at the state level. And very soon there's going to have to be a new ordinance passed, in my belief, that's going to be able to comply with Senate Bill 4209. It will be really interesting to see if they're just going to try and amend this act to comply or what they're going to do. But maybe that's going to be the way that we can get some new dispensaries back open.
All right, Attorney David Roy, real quickly, if people needed to get a hold of you, if they got some question, concern about business or criminal defense associated with marijuana, how can they get a hold of you, David?
Thank you.
Oh, I guess he didn't.
Great being on.
Oh, thanks a lot. I don't think you heard the question, but that's okay. Sorry about that. We'll come back on the other side of the break with attorney Alan Peisner coming up next. Don't go away.
The full melt.
Get ready, let's go. Hey now, na na na. Oh, hey now, let's go. Yeah, I've got style. I'll make it wild. I'll change it up and switch it up so versatile. I'll be myself and I'm gonna let everybody know.
We have the latest styles to mix it and mash it. So make it your own and bend the trend. JCPenney. When it fits, you feel it. During the JCPenney Back to School Hot Sale, get an extra $10 off when you spend $25 or more with coupon. Nike, Converse, Levi's, and other exclusions apply.
What's up with these things, Victor?
We decided to give ourselves stickers for each feature we release. We read about 10,000 suggestions a week to create features that, as traders, we'd want to use.
10,000 suggestions? Who reads all of those?
He does.
For all the confidence you need, TD Ameritrade, you got this.
Don't miss the first ever cannabis competition this year as the prize contest moves from Amsterdam to Jamaica. That's right, it's all Jamaican fun now with the Big Cup competition in Negril this November. Get your best travel accommodations now at JamaicaPot.com. Pack your beach bong and swimsuit and party down at the warm sandy beaches of Negril, Jamaica for the first ever big cannabis event this year. Do it in style or come have fun on a budget. Best travel prices now at JamaicaPot.com. That's JamaicaPot.com.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart, And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
We ask people to tell us something that happened in their past and something that might happen in their future. The good things were put on yellow magnets and the bad ones on blue. The results show the past was a pretty even mix of good and bad, yet the future was almost all good things. Now that you've seen the results of this experiment, what does it mean to you?
We all want to think about positive stuff.
Realistically, there will be downtimes.
It's great to think optimistically, but let's plan for whatever the future might bring.
Prudential, bring your challenges.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
If only you'd have known me before the accident. For with that grand collision came a grave consequence. Receptors overloaded, they burst and disconnect till there was little feeling. Please work with what is left.
Well, I'm going to try see here if we can't get Mr. Peisner on the line. I've been trying to reach him during the break. And unfortunately, back here at the petpain.com studios have been unable to do so. The issue is there was a Court of Appeals ruling, I believe a negative one today, disallowing a Section 8 defense for one Barb Agro. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Barb Agro story, let me try and reassociate you with it, or at least familiarize you with it. Ms. Agro worked for a dispensary in Ferndale. I always confuse the name of this dispensary because there are other dispensaries with sometimes similar names, a couple of them. And in the effort not to misquote the name of the dispensary, I will leave it blank. It's a Ferndale Relief Choices? No, it's not Relief Choices. Oh, good Lord. Can't remember the name of the place. But it's escaping me at the moment. The dispensary that she worked at as a receptionist, incidentally. So she was checking people's paperwork as they came in and keeping track of customers and being attentive to them as they come and go and filing the appropriate paperwork, etc. Any other medical receptionist, same kind of similar job, just in a medical marijuana dispensary. A dispensary is rated by Oakland County. Precipitation falls down where a number of other raids occur subsequent to that dispensary raid. And Ms. Agro, who her and her husband Sal, in Lake Orion, were the victims of raids by the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, again subsequent to the raid at the dispensary. Sal ended up in a situation where his health deteriorated quickly after that and passed away. It's been a painful sore subject for the Agro family. I believe it was wholly aggravated by this undue raid. And still looming in the years that have passed since is the question as to whether or not Miss Agro should be charged as a criminal. Remember, we're talking about a 70-plus-year-old woman here. As to whether or not she should be held criminal under Michigan's criminal code for manufacturing marijuana for her own consumption. Not that she was selling it anywhere. But they took money and they took property. They destroyed the garden. They essentially killed her husband. And then proceeded to charge Miss Agro as a criminal. And so the question was, and still remains, well, I guess not. I imagine, and I'm hoping that this will get appealed if my surmise, if my take on this currently is correct, will it get appealed to the Supreme Court? I would hope that there's room for that. I was hoping that Mr. Peisner will be able to offer us some insight as to that issue. And so I'm just going to try again because it seems that Mr. Peisner has been unduly detained from being able to participate in the program at the moment, or at least at the moment that we'd requested. And so while I'm talking to you here now, in my other ear, I'm going to attempt to redial because I can't do that from the soundboard on the air. So, I suppose if under normal circumstances, if there hadn't been a Supreme Court ruling on the issue of Section 8 and Section 4 defenses recently issued, going against former Court of Appeals rulings, I might add, overturning, at least in part, former Court of Appeals rulings on this subject, that the Court of Appeals might have a favorable ruling in this case. Believe they have denied Ms. Agro that opportunity. I'm still reaching no attorney Peisner. And this is a little bit frustrating because I have questions that I, as a host, can't answer. They only lie in Mr. Peisner's hands at this point. In the effort that I will try and make it through this break without Mr. Peisner, or that's all that I can do, I'd like to try and look up the Court of Appeals ruling and at least give it to you in some form that you can walk away with understanding. Because it's got to have application. I mean, this is, until it's appealed somewhere else, a binding decision. I'm not an attorney. I suppose I probably shouldn't be saying those things. As I understand it, believe that is the situation. It's my impression that is a binding decision until it's appealed and overturned by the Supreme Court. Until it's been modified by the next and only available answer to this question, look at it again, is the Supreme Court. And if they turn it down, if it's either not appealed, if it's turned down on appeal, we're not going to hear the case, or if they hear the case and rule against it, those would be the only three legs under which there would be any hope now for the case with Miss Agro, who's, I imagine the case now would be sent back to the trial court for a trial with no Section 8 defense. I mean, that's essentially, I think, what's going on here. So I'm going to try and, once again, look up this particular ruling and see if I can't make some heads or tails of it on its plain language. I'm usually pretty good at that. I really wish that Mr. Peisner was on the phone, though. I don't know what happened to him. It's a little bit frustrating that he isn't there. So I'm toggling back to see where this post was made, and I am just not seeing it. It's not in the place I anticipated or expected that it would be. Apparently, the post wasn't made on the page that I was looking for. It was a link to the actual case. And I'm afraid that I may have to toggle quite some distance back in my news feed in order to find it. And that is just not something I like to do on the air. I mean, it is something I'm going to do. It's just not something that I would like to do. Because I'm assuming that the post is some time ago, and I'm hoping that it's still in my news feed. Like, you don't know what Facebook's necessarily going to leave in your news feed, and this is a little frustrating. Caught with my pants down here, absent Mr. Peisner. Let's just try him once again, because I'm being unsuccessful in locating that content. Oh, I hate that. So here we go one more time. I don't know how we could have missed the idea of 7:30, but we do have at least a good 5 or 7 minutes yet before the next break. And so I'm hoping to reach Mr. Peisner on phone. So far, for some reason, I have been missing him. I just don't see any success with this. How frustrating is that? Well, if that's the case, I'm going to leave it at my surmise and move along. Because I don't have the actual case in front of me. I'm having a difficult time locating the actual link to that case in front of me. And so there's nothing to give you there. Mr. Peisner has disappeared. There's nothing to give you there. And so now I am forced just to go back to my good old standby, which is what else is going on in the world. Hopefully there's enough time left in the program to at least give you that. It seems like I've been alerted to something just now. So as the thing loads up here, because I did have some noted things jotted down, there was a report by NBC News today that was talking about how marijuana had doubled in U.S. usage, as well as problems had. Let's just delve into that for a second, because there's not much time left in this segment before we go to break. But I do want to say this about that. This is coming from a standard, mainstream, traditionally looked at as a liberal media arm. NBC News. NBCnews.com reported this story today. But I am at odds with their statistical information because I believe it is skewed without reason. And so it says marijuana has more than doubled in the U.S. since the beginning of the century. So we're talking about since 2000, right? So we just started the medical marijuana programs in 96 in California. But so they're talking about since 2000, marijuana use has more than doubled in the United States. But so have the problems for users, including addiction, researchers reported on Wednesday. They found 9.5% of U.S. adults used marijuana in 2013, up from 4.1% in 2001 and 2002. More Americans than ever approve of marijuana use. Just this week, a new Gallup survey showing that 58% of Americans favor the legalization of cannabis, the highest number ever. I'm going to wrap up this story on the other side of the break in the event that I still can't reach Mr. Peisner, because I still want to shake out that Agro question. We'll see what we can accomplish next after the break.
You're getting the full melt.
Young students are our future. They're eager to learn, eager to succeed, eager to make the world a better place. And they want to make it to school safely. Share the road, take care when passing, and always leave 3 feet between you and people on bikes. Bikes are legal road vehicles. We're all drivers.
Imagine a world where patients can use marijuana like any other medicine. The Marijuana Patients Organization challenges the status quo by helping our neighbors to enjoy a better quality of life. Visit the MPO at marijuanapatients.org and enjoy informative articles, engaging debates, and information about treatments, doctors, and dispensaries in your area. Over 50,000 people have registered at marijuanapatients.org since 2010. Join us at the Marijuana Patients Organization today, marijuanapatients.org.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience, bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pets.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Your old friend the Crypt Keeper here with a Pottober News Bulletin. Ghoulies and creepies gathered around for a map to patients partying down. As the days grow shorter to the end of month 10, it's time to gather, friend among friend. Michigan card holders, admission is free to the X on the map dubbed Hall Deboween. This lure of free fun is perfectly true, and this is the invite. Yes, that means you. The vendors and speakers this day are just ghosts, exchanged for free entry, free food, and a toast. Asunder our differences this Hallows Eve, so we may bring fire to glorious weed. You may light up and your neighbor may match it. The smoke in the air is to bury the hatchet. The contests you enter are all also free. Considerable prizes for the winners there'll be. Can of meds are welcome. It's alcohol free. The Jam Shack, Mount Morris, from 7 till 3.
Daboween sponsors include Depot Town of Ypsilanti, Sweetly, Flint, Harborside, Ann Arbor, Third Coast, Ypsilanti, Dank Team, Flint, Two Guys in a Grow Shop, Burton, Florida Bob's Place, Puff and Stuff of Lansing, Happy Buddha, Lansing, The Spot, Kalamazoo, Compassion Club US of Grand Rapids, Iron Labs, Walled Lake, Herbal Solutions, Ypsilanti, Bio Cultivation, The Herbal Center of Mount Morris, IDK Farms, Kurtz Leach and Associates of Birmingham, Act Labs, Lansing, Bill Clark Bash Investments, Burton, Hybrid Life Magazine, Once Bitten, Twice Baked, Lush Lighting in Niles, Cannabis Council, Detroit, Nichols Law Firm, East Lansing, The Green Rock Cafe, Flint, Urban Garden Supply, Flint, also the Marijuana Ranch, Happy Harvesters, The Full Melt Show, Lindy's Bed, Matty Eddie, Flex Cocaine, Jaxica Farm, and BDT Hazel Park.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio Show.
So Bridget Grant, NBCNews.com, says of the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism and colleagues got the data in this report from 2 giant face-to-face surveys of nearly 80,000 U.S. adults. The prevalence of marijuana use more than doubled between 2001 and 2002 and 2012 to 2013. And there was a large, so they're saying between the years from 2001 and 2002, that year, that 1 year period, to the year 2012, 2013, that 1 year period, the usage of marijuana more than doubled in the United States. And they said there was a large increase in marijuana use disorders during that time, as they wrote in the Journal of American Medical Association's JAMA Psychiatry. While not all marijuana users experience problems, nearly 3 of 10 marijuana users manifested a marijuana use disorder in 2012 through 2013. So I'm just going to say from this point forward, the year 2012, because that's what they're talking about. That adds up to 6.8 million Americans, they said. Just so... Oh, I just want to cry because these people are such idiots. I do. I really do. This is so big an issue for younger users, they said. This is a big issue for younger users. When examined by age, young adults were at the highest risk for marijuana use disorder in both surveys. Clearly, concerns about this age group continue, with prevention and intervention efforts for this group critically needed. Blacks are now more likely to use cannabis than whites, they added. It's clear that legal changes reflect a change in attitude about marijuana and cannabis products, Grant's team wrote. 4 states have legalized recreational marijuana use and 23 states for medical marijuana laws. People often don't realize that marijuana use is not always safe, says the report. Further, fewer Americans view marijuana use as risky. Although studies have shown that use or early use of marijuana is associated with increased risk for many outcomes, including cognitive decline, psychological impairments, vehicle crashes, emergency department visits, psychiatric symptoms, poor quality of life, use of other drugs, a cannabis withdrawal syndrome, and addiction risk, they wrote. All of it hogwash, I tell you. Much of this is misconception and myth. I don't know where they say they're getting these statistics from, because they don't actually cite the statistics in that claim. Their statistic sightings are about the number of people using cannabis between certain dates and certain years, basically a 10-year period apart. In this case, in actuality, 11 years, so about a decade. They're saying that use of cannabis doubled. I'd like to know where they got those stats from. They're actually cited here in the report. I just don't agree with them because I would venture to say that these dual reports had to have some kind of sponsorship by NIDA, the National Institute Against Drug Addiction. So this is the National Institute of Drug Abuse. These guys are cited with, they're charged with the obligation, and if they're going to justify their own existence, they'll follow through on this, and they have, and they will continue to do so as long as they exist. And they probably will forever, I think. They're charged with the obligation of finding the negative aspects of these issues. The National Institute on Drug Abuse isn't going to run around finding or putting together studies that say that cannabis use is a gangbang winner. They don't have this interest. They don't have this obligation. They don't have this edict. Their edict is opposite. This is where many of these studies come from. Bridget Grant, and this is from the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism and colleagues. They say they got the data that they're citing here from 2 giant face-to-face surveys of nearly 80,000 U.S. adults. They do not cite the surveys. They did report the information in the Journal of the American Medical Association's JAMA Psychiatry. This, to me, is a problem. Let me see if we can't get... so my overall impression on this story is that this is much misinformation. See if we can't get back to the phone lines. Oh. Let's see if... Hello, Mr. Peisner.
Your call has ended.
Oh, no. See, there it goes. We had him there, and he was gone. I had to get rid of the other dial tone. There were 2 lines ringing there. Dang it. So, I think these new voice over IP lines cause problems. Let's see if we can't get Mr. Peisner on the phone. Hit the redial button here. And since I probably can't move that phone. Oh, crap. See, now it's quite apparent that Mr. Peisner is actually on the phone. Okay, here we go. Hello. Hey, Al, stand by 1 second. I'm going to connect you on there. Okay. So it's just a very strange thing. Here we go. Mr. Peisner. Alan Peisner, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm glad we had a chance to wrangle you down. So I'm going to go ahead and stop our current content and reposition ourselves for overtime. So alert to stations downline. We're going to go overtime today. There is no station downline. I'm just saying that to fill time. Alert to stations downline. We're going to go overtime today. Sometimes we used to have stations downline. Okay. So now I've got the program content stopped because we were only going to have about a minute and a half before the program ended. Normally, normally we end at 8 o'clock. But so that's quite all right. I know that sometimes it's easy to get caught up with clients and issues. And being that you are paid to take care of those guys, I would think that it would be more important to take care of them than to talk to us because we have no obligation on your heels.
Yes, well, they're facing jail time or worse.
Yeah, see, I would put them in line. Can you go ahead? Can you just let this guy cut in front of me, please? Because he's got an issue that's way bigger than mine, for sure. So, I wanted to ask you about this Agro decision. Can you at least give us a good description of what the decision entails? I think I encapsulated it when I said that that this did not allow for a Section 8 defense at trial for Miss Agro. Am I correct in that assessment?
Yes, it's a very bad decision. I put it along the same lines as Carruthers from Oakland County, Hartwick and Tuttle from Oakland County, which were somewhat modified by the Supreme Court. But basically, I think it almost puts an impossibility level of a defense into a Section 8 because of what they described the bona fide physician-patient relationship required for the Section 8 defense. And what it says is it needs to be a pre-existing and ongoing. Well, the part I have a problem with is pre-existing. In other words, most people have a regular doctor who tells them they have glaucoma or something like that, but they won't prescribe a Schedule I substance to treat them, such as cannabis. So then the person goes to a doctor through a clinic, and they show them their medical records with their high eye pressure, and the doctor at the clinic gives them a certification. Well, the question there is, or the problem is that a pre-existing with the physician who has signed their certification?
So what you're saying is that the court's right, or the Court of Appeals is determining that bringing your previous medical records to a doctor who will approve cannabis for your condition, and having him certify you in that way does not constitute a doctor-patient relationship that is bona fide.
Under their relationship, under their definition, yeah, it has to be a pre-existing and ongoing. I almost think a person needs to go see the cannabis doctor, and the cannabis doctor tells them come back in a month. Well, and then they get their certification. I don't know what their definition is, but they make it harder and harder to enforce the will of the people as we voted for in 2008.
I can hear the skin on the arms of many of the people on the Supreme Court shuddering as we speak because they may have to revisit this issue.
Yes. There have been so many cases that have gone up there. It's been driving the Supreme Court justices crazy, and they're mostly from Oakland County. As a matter of fact, the morning that my colleague David Rudoy argued in front of the Supreme Court, and there were two other cases there on medical marijuana the same day. All three of them were from Oakland County, and one of the justices remarked to the Oakland County prosecutor, "You're a frequent flyer."
Ha. I love the derogatory, demeaning terms they like to use to belittle you in the process of adjudicating your case.
Yeah. It's really sickening. I mean, I expected in 2008 the number of pot cases to decrease in court. And as someone who's gone to court for 25 years, I think most attorneys will agree with me that there's been a noticeable increase in the number of pot cases since 2008.
Well, because I think there are a number of factors that play into that. I think you're exactly correct, and I don't adjudicate those cases. I simply see them reported in the news. I simply hear about it from my friends in the cannabis community, left, right, up, and down. And it's clear and apparent that the exposure of this group via the MMMA in Michigan has left many people with pants down.
Yeah. I really think people are, because of that, thought that they could be more open about it. And I think there were just as many people using it before, but because they become more open, they
became exposed.
Right, and leaving themselves subject to an arrest, and a search warrant and arrest.
Well, in many cases, no arrest and no charge because they take your money and your car and say, look, if you argue with us, we'll just file the charges.
That's the Ross case most recently out of Westland. My friend William Mays litigated that case in the trial court and was moaning about it 3 years ago. He finally got the Court of Appeals to reverse them on that. But that case actually is pretty good. This one is really bad at the other end of the extreme. The thing I liked about the Ross case and the forfeiture was they didn't have to reach the conclusion that mere possession is not enough for vehicle forfeiture, and they cited law on that, and that was great. They had an easier way out if they wanted to keep all the other prosecutorial judges happy, and all they had to do was say it was the innocent owner defense because she was driving her dad's car and he didn't know about it. So they could have given the car back that way, but they went the extra mile, or in my opinion, took the high road and said that mere possession is not enough for vehicle forfeiture. The interesting backstory on that case is that the Westland police in the meantime have sold her dad's truck. So, and since it was ordered back by the courts, they can't do it. I think they're going to get sued for treble damages plus attorney fees.
Because they got a little anxious about, a little trigger happy, so to speak. Okay, pun intended.
Yeah.
On selling her car.
Sorry?
I'd say they got a little trigger happy on selling her car rather than hold it and tie up the space, which they could probably get impound money for. They sold the dang thing, and when the trial courts ruled against them, said you got to give it back, don't have it to give back. Treble damages would be the value of what they recouped from the car times 3.
I'm not actually sure how you do that calculation.
Well, I know that treble damages are punitive.
Not what the price they sold it for. I think it would be at least replacement value, plus actual attorney fees,
right?
Which is going to make it
a lot.
Yeah, and they're going to have a high motivation to settle that case.
Well, and probably a high motivation not to do that kind of thing in the future.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a good motivation. I mean, it seems like this is the only time you get pressure relief from police is when there is legal action applied.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? My phone broke up.
That's okay, I'll try it again. I say it seems that the only time you get pressure relief from police in situations like this is when legal action is applied. In other words, you take them to court.
Yeah. And you hope you get a good judge who reads the law. There's too many judges who ignore the law.
Well, how can we as Americans continue to stand and look at a subverted criminal justice system and allow it to continue? When does this cease, Alan?
Well, one of the things is to know the judges you're voting for, and most people don't. They just vote for, when it comes to November, they just vote for the incumbents most of the time. I think the smarter thing is if you don't know, don't vote for any of them.
Well, that's what I do because it certainly is. Look, as a learned person, as a guy who's fairly educated in politics, it's very mired, these judges, because they don't run in partisan platforms when they're clearly partisan individuals.
Yes. And I think that's one another good thing. I mean, the Supreme Court is the same way, even though they're definitely Democrats and Republicans. But I think the thing to do is to know where they stand on certain issues. There have been some judges that are definitely more liberal and pro-cannabis use, and there's some that are very anti-cannabis use.
But you know what? It doesn't matter the judge's personal views on cannabis. They're there to apply the law. That's all they're there to do.
I know, but it still seems to work its way into the cases.
It always does.
The crazy decisions that we get, like the Carruthers case from Oakland County, which was the extract case.
So they're making the claim in the Agro case that she didn't have a bona fide doctor-patient relationship, and therefore, ergo, no Section 8 defense at trial.
Yeah, that was one of the problems. That was the biggest problem I had with it, because I think that's the hardest one to correct for future clients. They had a couple other problems with the case about the reasonable amount that she didn't meet that element as well.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, because I saw pictures of the aftermath of this, there were less than 12 plants there, if I'm not mistaken, and they had, less than 24 plants, and they had two qualified patients.
Yeah, there were 17, according to the opinion.
Right, 17. So her and her husband, between them, they're saying, so the 17 plants is over the 12 limit somehow.
Right. They would have had a Section 4 defense as well, but they didn't have it in a closed, locked facility, according to the testimony relied upon by the court. They had it in their basement. There was no door going down to the basement, and apparently the front door of their house was open, too.
Well, that's what happens when you're conducting a raid and pointing guns at family members' heads, and you get an emergency call. You might leave the building without locking it. But that's an awfully heavy price for an elderly person to pay, given the gray nature of the law, especially at the time.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a terrible decision, along with many other ones that we've gotten that have really changed the law we thought we were voting for in 2008. Plus, the legislature's tinkered with it a little bit, too.
There have been some exceptions to say things like, I know there's an excited utterance exception in the court rules to hearsay. Am I correct?
Right.
So what's to say that you couldn't get the courts to adopt a court rule to give an exception to Section 8 defense like this in the instance where the police have used another gadget or tool at their behest to scare somebody into leaving the door unlocked. I think it's a big stretch. It is a big stretch.
I understand the question, and I think that's a factor that should have been weighed by the court. The problem is when you have a judge that's very anti-pot, they're going to weigh everything in favor of the prosecutor. Remember, most judges, not all, but a lot of them have come from the prosecutor's office, so they have that mindset to begin with. And they have friends in there, and their friends are cops. And so a defense attorney going to court on defending someone on these cases very often has two attorneys against them they have to fight. They have to fight the prosecuting attorney, and they have to fight the judge. Sometimes I call the judge a prosecuting judge by the way they make decisions.
There seems to be so many obvious conflicts of interest in our judicial system that it's frustrating beyond belief.
Yeah.
Well, Attorney Alan Peisner, I appreciate you giving your insight on this. Does this mean, do you know if this case is being appealed?
That's a good question. You know, the opinion just was released today. They have 21 days to file an application for leave to the Supreme Court. I know the attorney that did this case in the Court of Appeals, Mary Chartier, and she is really good. She works in Lansing.
Right.
And she did the Kuhn case, by the way, to the Supreme Court. She's established some good precedent, but I think she just drew a bad panel of judges, and I haven't talked to her about it, but I would be surprised if she doesn't file an application for leave. I'll be seeing her soon, and I'll talk to her about it. But
please let me know how that turns out, because I'd like to know for sure if they're appealing that case. We're running out of time, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry that I got on here so late. We can try for another time. I'd like to do this again. I just apologize the way things worked out this evening.
No, that's quite all right. Hey, things happen. This is what happens when you're doing live radio, and you've got people that need to be a heartbeat away from an answer to an important question. So we're going to leave it there and kind of revisit this as things go by. Attorney Alan Peisner, once again, thanks for coming on the program and kind of giving us the lowdown on what's going on. Bad news aside.
Yes.
We'll talk to you
pleasure.
soon. All right, bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
So we'll see you again here tomorrow. Tomorrow would be Thursday for another full-hour edition of The Full Melt Show. Until then, be safe, and you know what? It's 4:20 somewhere, sometime every hour, every day.
The Full Melt Show is a production of TFM Media.